dun, 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 Gainz podcast. Dun, 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 Gainz podcast. Welcome back, Gainz Nation. We're bringing you episode 33. Today we're gonna be talking to you about the bench press. What's so important about the bench press, you might ask? Big pecs equals big paychecks. You know we're gonna get paid. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
I thought, before we do the intro, obviously that's Roman Long talking and I'm Antoine. But what I've heard the last time is I thought it was more pecs, more sex.
That probably depends on who you talk to. The Mormon community, they might disagree, or maybe they might agree.
You never know these days. That's all you gotta say.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in for another great episode. Today we're gonna be breaking down the bench press. We're gonna be covering everything you need to know. The form. How should my bench look? We're gonna be talking about who could benefit from the bench press. We're gonna be talking about powerlifters. If you're looking to jump into the big three, the SBD as they call it. No, it is not a cult, or maybe it is a cult. Just give us your firstborn child and you're in, baby. We're going to be going over bodybuilders. Bodybuilders certainly do the bench press. How the heck else are they going to get those Olympian-like pectoralis major muscles? That's Spanish, more like Spanglish for major. And, folks, we're going to be talking about general population, Gen Pop, GP. We're not talking about GPP, although we will be talking about GPP. We'll probably touch upon GPP and SPP, talking about the GP and how it applies to the GP. Tune in on the GP Gainz podcast.
Are you talking about gross profit or Gainz podcast? I can't even tell anymore.
Too many damn acronyms. Can you just, bro? Gainz Nation is gonna ban me from acronyms. From now on, you have to say whatever you're talking about.
Another side note besides the saying I said earlier, Roman, are we getting more shirtless posts and shirtless YouTube videos coming or what? I know it's getting hot out there, but golly, let's not show everybody all the gains. We gotta hide it somehow.
I'm gonna I've been doing some the Omar Issa stuff. I gotta push out the gun a little bit more. I gotta make sure that I get a good full meal in me before I do the shootings. Shootings. I probably shouldn't say shootings. The filming.
They're gonna be like, dang, Roman's got them dad gains. He's got the big gut with the vascular swole arms.
I do got the dad bod going on right now, folks. You just gotta embrace it.
It's the opposite season for Roman. He when people like to cut for the summer, he likes to get them gains even more.
I swear, I've trimmed down a little bit since the peak.
Dude, I haven't even hit 195 yet. I waited after vacation at 191, and then today 192.
Nice. Yeah, that's steady, slow gains. Definitely on the gains train.
195 before the fall, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then 200 by the end of the year.
Yeah. Are you were you able to find a barbell?
No, man. The people were not. People are messaging me. I put a message on Twitter. I even tried to reach out to a local Chicago company that builds barbells. These guys are not even open. I don't know how. How can't you manufacture and ship out a barbell? I don't know what the heck to do anymore.
Gainz Nation, I don't want to say I'm disappointed, but I think you know how I feel. You need to hit up our boy Antoine. How else is he gonna become the Sultan of Swole without them big benches? Come on now, come on.
Seriously, I'm just trying to get a 600-pound deadlift by the end of this year, and I can't even hit 135 these days.
Dude, I've been debating like, should I just buy like multiple sacks of rice and just like strongman deadlift it? Like, I did a post recently where I'm just shoving shit in a like a utility bag. Not literal shit. That would be gross. Although it might be fairly
It
heavy.
could be beneficial too.
I was like trying to shove like gallons of water in there with like already like tools in there, just like not zipping up. I'm like, this shit's gonna fall over the place. I'm gonna freaking like flood the living room.
You know what's been nice about this quarantine is seeing people do like these lifts like kind of like that, but like I saw someone try benching off like a plastic lawn chair, and the chair just once he pressed up, the chair just completely snapped and he fell right on his head. And it just amazes me. I'm like, do these people understand like that plastic's not gonna hold more than like 200 pounds?
Oh my god. I was watching I usually don't do this, but I was watching like a gym fail video the other day, and this guy he actually had a decent setup. He probably got it at Lowe's. He I think he cemented. At least I hope he cemented them. He might not have, to be honest with you. Let's just say he cemented some 2x4s in a 5-gallon bucket, which would have been smarter than just fucking sticking 2x4s in a 5-gallon bucket. He framed them so that it essentially like made a like a J cup that he could put like a barbell on. And he goes to the bench like a ridiculous weight, and you can tell like as soon as he unracks it, it's just like woof. It's just like not going anywhere. So he like goes for like the bail method out on one side, and then he's gonna like roll it off himself. And the guy that's like reviewing the video, he's like, don't do that, folks. He's like, if you haven't benched that before, like you don't have a spot. Like, oh my god, make sure it's something that's like your body can handle.
Oh gosh. But
all right, what do we need to know about bench? Antoine, break down how you would program bench for a bodybuilder.
Well, first off, I probably wouldn't because every day is arm day.
Gainz, baby.
So it depends. So right now my goal is more of a powerlifting / bodybuilding secondary focus. So right now, most of the time, what I do for myself. Oh, should we talk about the setup first, or just how I'm programming it right now?
Yeah, we can go over form stuff. Step is always good.
Yeah. So first things is the setup. Even if you're powerlifting, bodybuilding, gen pop, you definitely want to have the 3 points of contact when it starts off with the bench. So pretend like when you're laying down on the bench, you want to have at least your butt touching the bench, the back of your shoulder / like your traps touching the bench, as well as your feet. So those 3 main points are the focal points of the bench when you talk about the setup. If you arch, you don't arch, I don't give a damn. Yes, I said that. I don't give a damn. Whatever sport you're doing, that's going to be different. So if you're posting stuff about people arching, come on, buddy. You should be hitting that set instead of posting that video of someone arching or not arching.
Get out of the damn bar.
You might need to get out of the damn bar at that point. But other than, making sure, obviously for safety reasons, the feet don't have to touch the ground. Like say if you're trying to get a little different, like, muscle strain or muscle activity, you can put your feet up, you could put your feet on the bench. Obviously, don't do that if you're a beginner. Roman, I know for a fact, has done that before when he was in the gym. He was doing that for a little while, just for a different setup / I think you were trying to improve different activation, correct? Like you were trying to take the leg drive out of it.
Yeah. I think Dan Green's big about that. I think I was doing it more just trying to like show people that there's like another way that you can bench. And I would.
Well, that was for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know.
We'll definitely get to this. Like some people believe that like arching in the bench is like a one-way ticket to Snap City is what they always say, which is like not accurate at all. But like we'll definitely talk about how you can program into like building and like working in your arch, because I do think that it's like an adaptation that like if you want to lift the most amount of weight, like you have to work on building your arch. That it's just like it's a statement of fact.
Yeah.
But I think for the injured population in particular, the reason why I was lifting my feet, so essentially your back kind of looks like on the bench, it's going to look like this a little bit. No matter what you do, you're going to have some type of an arch because your back is going to most likely be in lordosis, and then your thoracic spine is going to essentially like arch in the opposite direction. So you're going to get this like little bit of an arch. You can feel it like if you lie down on like a relatively hard surface, like let's say like your floor, it could be carpet, it could be hardwood, and you put your hand behind your low back, you'll actually feel like a space between there. And what power lifters try to do is they try to proof their arch or like build up their arch as much as possible to reduce the range of motion to the top of their chest, because that gives them a mechanical advantage, allows them to lift more weight. A bodybuilder, maybe they don't have to like have as big of an arch, but we'll talk about why I think an arch is important for bodybuilders. Gen Pop, I wouldn't worry about it so much. I'd worry about like kind of like the mechanics that Antoine and I talk about. But the benefit, getting back to why I went onto this tangent, for putting your feet up on a bench or lifting your feet up, you can keep them suspended in the air, but not technically on the ground, like Antoine was talking about. This kind of like defines that like that 3 or 5 points of contact, however you like want to explain that, is when you lift your feet up and put them on the bench, now you're actually going to be flattening out the low back. For some people that experience non-specific low back pain, that may allow them to bench and do so without pain, because having even like a small degree of that arch essentially looks like, I guess it kind of looks like this of your back, and like this is like the rest of your pelvis into your legs, etc. That can cause a degree of discomfort for some folk that they'd like to like stay away from. So if you really want to bench, if you really love to bench, but you do have low back pain, you may be able to get away with, to a certain degree, for a certain period of time, lifting your feet, keep them on the bench or keep them lifted up in the air. Remember, that's going to take away leg drive, so you're not going to be able to create as much force. You're not going to be as tight, so you're going to have more areas where the weight or the force of the bar can quite literally spill from your body. So make sure to always start lighter than you think.
Yeah, and also I'm pretty sure that client or friend / coworker, you only brought that up and you created that scenario because did he mention that he had lower back pain?
He might have, but I think it was more about like
just another way.
No, he was saying like specifically that he thinks that the arch is like dangerous and harmful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, other than that, the points of contact after, obviously before we were talking about the arch, the only other thing I would mention too is where your grip starts and end with both hands. Obviously, make them even. Use like the rings around the bench to kind of get a good idea where you're at when it comes to being even with the actual barbell itself. Should we go into powerlifting or bodybuilding since, I'm going to say something or?
Yeah, let's definitely talk about bodybuilding, then we can like switch into powerlifting.
Yeah, so like, for a bodybuilding setup, I don't necessarily think like, you don't have to have a competition style bench, meaning like, you don't have to worry about like too much of an arch / like making sure your feet are perfectly set up for leg drive, because like I said in the first video with the squat, a lot of the times you're getting judged on proportion in muscle size. So like say if you're bodybuilding and your main focus is to grow the pecs, you'll see like a lot of bodybuilders like Steve Cook, who's that other guy, Brandon, I forgot his name, Brandon something. I think he was like Classic Physique, but like most of them or some of them, they believe in actually most of the time not even keeping your elbows tight. They're most of the time going like half range of motion to get the chest stimulus, and not so much like the benefits of having the power not the stretch. But it could go either way. I mean, most of the time, some bodybuilders will preach full range of motion, but again, depending on, I know Roman's going to have a different view on this, depending on what your goal is as well as what you lack in body, I don't think it's always necessary for bodybuilders to focus on like perfect form throughout. Obviously, perfect form to keep you safe, but not perfect form to be like, well, I'm going to the gym and I want to bench 500. As a bodybuilder, you probably don't say that. You might if you're like me, since my goal is like powerlifting, secondary is bodybuilding, and my goal is to like even out some of the areas I lack. But my secondary, like my primary goal is, how am I going to get this bench better? Am I going to do things to build the lacking muscles for bodybuilding, or am I going to try to fix my form throughout the process to become that power lifter? So I know I kind of went in between the two, but that's kind of like the general consensus when it comes to like bodybuilding and powerlifting that I wanted to kind of talk about, Roman. And I want to hear your thoughts because I know it's going to be a little bit different, as well as I want to see what you're thinking as well.
Yeah. So if I were to like talk about form on the bench press to a bodybuilder, and we'll talk strictly barbell bench press for now, for the sake of time. What I would emphasize is I would teach the arch to someone. I prefer scapular depression over scapular retraction and scapular retraction and depression. And the reason is I do believe it's a small amount, and admittedly, I think it's very, very small. But scapular depression would essentially be taking your scapula or your shoulder blades or shoulder girdle and bringing them down and down. I have some other videos on Instagram about it showing why I prefer that over retraction. With retraction, you do keep your shoulders, quote unquote, safer by keeping them like much tighter. What I don't necessarily like about retraction is it doesn't allow the rhomboids to assist as much as a stabilizer. I feel like it takes them out of the picture. So I'm not looking to grow my rhomboids at all, but I think that it can allow us to add more force into the bar by being able to lift more mass, which if you're able to put more, there's some adages that like more weight, like you have like greater degrees of hypertrophy, probably not like anywhere between like a relatively close to failure between like 5 to 30 reps, you can receive like extremely similar hypertrophy gains or like muscle growth gains. So what I would emphasize is like, yes, keeping the feet on the bench, working on developing an arch, but it doesn't have to be extreme at all. I like developing an arch for myself as a bodybuilder. If I'm like in like, let's say gaining phase, to like put on some mass to my pecs, because I do believe that one, it aids in stability by like having the depressed shoulder blades, and then by limiting the range of motion slightly, because I still want full range of motion when I'm coming down and touching my chest. I believe that it reduces like the injury potential, because now you essentially can't go any further if you remain tight and you keep that arch, as opposed to like if you're doing like partials, then like it's easy to gas yourself out. If you can't control that like last eccentric, if like your person doesn't your spot doesn't come and like help you quick enough, I think that increases the injury risk, even though it's probably extremely low. I think it does increase the injury risk. I would say tucking the elbows as opposed to like the bodybuilder style, like Jay Cutler, where he's out like this. I don't like that at all. I think it's super unnecessary. I get an excellent pump, which is like a proxy indicator for hypertrophy or muscle gains, by keeping my elbows relatively tucked. Now, if your elbows are never leaving your body, it's probably much more tricep dominant. But from a bodybuilder standpoint, like, man, you can't get like too much triceps. So obviously there are probably some situations where you want to take the tricep more out of it, and then yeah, you might want to experiment with like widening out the grip, which naturally will reduce the amount of like elbow tuck that you can create. But the big things are just kind of like feeling the movement and really feeling like the blood and like the lactate, like that muscle burning effect in like the pecs themselves. So you do that, I think, by like a slow and controlled eccentric, as opposed to just letting the bar come down to the chest, because then one, if you have excellent control of the bar somehow, some way, which people never do when they use that strategy, they're typically going to bounce the bar off their chest, which you absolutely do not want to do as a bodybuilder. You want to feel every fiber as you're coming down, and then explode off the chest.
Can you talk to them about the Scott Mendelson effect when you're instead of bouncing off the chest? What does Scott Mendelson say? Do you remember?
He's just like all about leg drive, man, and he's like all I need to do is like flex my glutes, and I bring the bar halfway up. I do most of the work with my legs.
Yeah, and then he also said you should row the bench into your lats and then use the lats as like power. Yeah. So, yeah, some people do have some kind of weird off techniques to the bench when it comes to powerlifting. So,
to be fair, he has benched, I think, over 1,100 pounds. I don't think in a competition, and it was in a multiply suit, I think. And he, until maybe recently, because I'm not sure about Julius Maddox. Julius Maddox is like probably due to hit 800 like fairly soon, which is insane. Julius Maddox, I think, is like the new world record holder for the bench press. For raw. Yeah, raw. 780 or something like that, I think. I think he attempted 790 recently. I don't think it went, but it was not in a competition, so I don't know if it's official or not. If he keeps on going, he like will hit it though, like no doubt about that. Scott Mendelson, I want to say his largest bench is 740 raw. I could be wrong, but I think just under the super heavyweight group, I think he was like right under that like classification. You can find it on openpowerlifting.com, I think. I think that's what it is. Or you can just Google Scott Mendelson. He's an absolute tank. He was on Instagram recently with like a 12 gauge shotgun outside of his gym, because he like didn't want looters to like break his windows, like understandably. He's like a wicked entertaining guy. I think like some of his stuff is kind of wacky, kind of wonky. But I'd say definitely give him a check out, a listen. He's done some podcasts with Mark Bell for Super Training Gym. He also has his own channel, I think. People call him like Mendy. Anyways, so from a bodybuilding standpoint, I would say like really slow and controlled, really feel each rep. By like the end of like a 8, 10, 12, 15 rep set, like my chest is so freaking pumped up, man. And I've almost always tucked my elbows. So I just like really don't like this. I don't think that like bodybuilders should ever do this again. I think it creates too much like undue risk. And yeah, you do like end up using more tricep the more you end up tucking the bench. But like I said, like from a bodybuilder standpoint, like dude, like give me them tricep gains. I want them.
Yeah, and like another thing too is like, yeah, I mean I get that part for the bodybuilding. I only say that because I deem it necessary to like look at all avenues. But yeah, I'm also a big proponent of doing it like when you tuck your elbows in, you know, because I haven't had any major shoulder problems, but like, man, if you know, whatever can you do to like lower the risk, I would say do it, because like the shoulder is like such a unique joint where it can mess up a lot of things. And we're not talking about just like bench press. We're talking about a lot of things where like I was struggling like the back part of my like shoulder / my back. But other than that, like I wanted to talk about too as well, like, you know, when I mentioned like raw, like multiply, we were talking about earlier, you know, that's like another piece of this, like too, with equipment. You know, if you're having trouble like trying to figure out how to tuck your elbows in or whatnot, speaking on Mark Bell, like Mark Bell makes the Slingshot where pretty much you put your arms into it, it lays over your chest. You know, they have a video on how to wear it. You know, the longer arms you have, they say to put it up a little bit higher. If you're a little bit shorter, put it over your elbows. and then, somewhat being on your forearms. And that's generally going to teach you on how to get that like max effort on tucking your elbows, using everything you can for the bench press, and how to improve it, even, whatever sport you're in. So, kind of going to like the gen pop / like bodybuilding and powerlifting, like even if you're gen pop and, you're trying to figure out what's like a good form, the slingshot pushes your elbows to be tucked in to start with, as well as it helps you build a resistance, and it helps to do a different training modality when it comes to the bench press, because you can kind of overload the bench with a slingshot, and it also assists you to lift a little bit more weight, as well as also it is a proponent to help out with recovery and rehab of shoulder injuries. I haven't had like a major shoulder injury, but like I've heard, like, with older populations or people that were in baseball that used to be a pitcher or first baseman, whatever, or a second baseman that throws a lot, this, piece of fabric does alleviate a little bit pain, like more pain, like a little bit less pain when it comes to bench press, as well as like focusing on, getting that total mobility with the bench press as well, instead of using all shoulders in your top part of your trunk. So.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think the slingshot could be a really useful tool. It's fairly inexpensive, right? How much do you end up getting yours for?
I remember I bought a combo where it's like the slingshot, the wraps, and I think the compression cuffs, but I think alone it's like $50 or less.
That's not
So
bad.
yeah, so someone who wants to get a good form like checkup, or someone who had experienced like shoulder pain or is scared to like bench because of shoulder pain, I think you should purchase one to like kind of assist you a little bit. But obviously do some without it too as well. Like, I don't sit there and use a slingshot the whole time. I only use it to like overload right now, as well as to keep my form in check with my elbows tucked and everything. So I like it. I've been using it for years now. So
Heck yeah, very cool. I think we're running kind of short in time, aren't we?
yeah. So I would say that's why I was trying to get in the gen pop. I think if you wanted to sum it up, we should be kind of good to go with the content when it comes to the bench.
Quick note for powerlifters, one area where I noticed that I was making like massive gains, I switched from benching 2 times a week to 3 times a week. It's not going to work for everyone. Some people are going to perform better for higher frequencies. So the point of me saying this is try and experiment with different frequencies. If you're benching 1 time a week, go to 2 times. Don't go to 5 or 6 times. Like, be reasonable about it and work up. Do a mesocycle 4 to 8 weeks where you go to like 2 times. Then after that, you might need to do a different movement pattern for like 4 weeks, and then go back into trying three times per week. Then same thing, do that for 8 weeks. Then 4 weeks where you do a different movement pattern. Then you try 4. That's like 3/4 of a year or whatnot, and now you'll know like between 1 to 4 times like what's giving you like the best like amount of growth, what's giving you the best amount of strength gains, like whatever your goal would be. Like frequency, I've found for bench has been like a game changer for me. I broke through some like huge plateaus that like I couldn't for like years. Gen pop, I think bench press is like a really good movement for gen pop. I would say in general, start like much lighter than you think. Maybe like doing like a dumbbell bench press would be like a better place to start, because the barbell bench press is a little bit more technical. We won't be able to get too much into form stuff, but I'd say if you practice what we went over in the bodybuilding section, then that's pretty good advice. Because for gen pop, I really want you to feel out the movement in your pecs. So that's going to be your chest muscles here. I really want you to feel the movement in your triceps, which is going to be like the underside of your arm. And I really want you to feel the movement on your front delt. Those are like the what are called the prime movers. And those are really important muscles when it comes to pushing things. We all have to push things every single day. If you ever leave your apartment, your home, if you ever need to like move some sort of like heavy-ish object, and you can't pick it up, well, what's the next thing we do? We freaking push it. So super, super important. Obviously, when we're like pushing other things, like the rest of our body is involved. And as your journey like with bench like continues on, and we hope it does continue on, you will find that you'll want to incorporate more things. Like another like big thing for me, like from a powerlifting standpoint, it was huge. Like my bench felt so much more stable when I just made a slight shift in my feet, when I took them to being about perpendicular to the floor, to having my feet actually behind my knees. I was able to get a little bit more tension in my spine, or like the rest of my like upper body, so that I could like essentially like drive the weight back a little bit better. Little things like that, I would say, for the Gen Pop, like try and model off of the bodybuilding section that we talked about. Slow and controlled reps on the way down. Feel free to explode up. For some people, like going as fast as possible, like doesn't feel super great. So I'd say like go at a fast clip on the way up, but it doesn't have to be like because you might have the inclination to like throw the bar if you're going like super duper duper light. And in that case, like yeah, you could probably like add some weight. Rep schemes, I'd say start with like 2 to 3 sets. I would go anywhere between like 8 to 12 reps. If you go up to the 15 to 20 rep scheme, totally fine. If you're Gen Pop, you're like just getting to the gym, I would say don't go for like 5s or 3s, or don't try and see what your 1 rep max is. Like just worry about like trying to find a form that's comfortable for you, where you can feel the movement in your chest, your front part of your shoulder, and your tricep muscle.
Sweet, buddy. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, again, guys, this is episode 33, the Larry Bird special. Shout out to my boys in Massachusetts, or people that are from Massachusetts. That I thought you would have said something in the beginning, but I guess this guy's not true to Boston.
Dude, totally on my head.
I was gonna say it earlier, but I was like, he's already talking. I don't want to distract him. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Please like, comment, subscribe, share it to your mamas, your brothers, your sisters, their friends, mamas, dads, sisters, brothers, and then get the Gainz going, baby. Thank you as always for watching. Peace.
See you on that next one.